Sorry. That introduction, Steve. Let's open with a word of prayer. Loving God, Father, Mother, Spirit, thank you for the gift of this day. Thank you for all of the gifts that these youth bring, and all of the wonderful experiences that we were, as a group, able to have this summer on our mission trip to Asheville. We just ask for your presence to be made known to us and made real to us in this time. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Amen.
So good morning, everyone. I am going to just start by letting you know that the trip we're going to talk about is the high school mission trip, and that we're going to share with you about. It's the high school mission trip that we took back in June. And we went to Asheville, North Carolina, and we worked with a group called Asheville Youth Mission. And we did various projects that the youth will tell you about. I just want to emphasize this trip happened 4 months ago. So to jog our memories, we're going to start by showing some pictures from the trip. And, you know, we'll tell you about what's going on in the pictures. And if you see a picture that you're in, or if you see a picture that you know exactly what's going on, feel free to interrupt me and, you know, share anything that you want to share. I will at times invite you to share things, but you're free to interrupt me at any point, okay? So Lauren, Andrew, Julia, and Will, you are empowered to interrupt me at any point, and if there's anything you'd like to say.
I'm going to mute everybody now, so Matt, you'll have to turn your sound back on, and for students, when you want to talk, you have to unmute yourselves.
All right, thanks for doing that. And then, so we'll do the pictures. And then a few of the youth have made some slideshows that they're going to share. And then we'll have a little panel. And I'll start with some questions for the youth that they'll answer. And then we'll open it up for you all's questions. But first, before we do any of that, we're going to introduce ourselves. So if you don't know, my name's Matt, and I'm the Director of Christian Education at Bradley Hills. And the youth trips are one of the big things that I do in my work as the Director of Christian Ed. And I'd like to invite now Lauren, Andrew, Julia, and Will. Lauren, why don't you go first? Just introduce yourself by saying maybe your grade and the school you go to. And if you do have, I think only one of you right now does, but if you have a leadership position in the church, then you can share that as well, like youth elder or youth deacon.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I am a senior at Winston Churchill High School, and I'm currently also the youth elder at BHPC. So yeah, I'll share my screen because I made a PowerPoint. All right, you guys can see it, right? Okay. So this is about our trip to Asheville last summer, which we all had a lot of fun on. Starting off, here's like a group picture of the youth that went on the trip. This was a Polaroid that was taken while we had like our free day to explore Asheville. So like most of the time we were there, we were doing community service and working with different organizations, but we did have like a couple of afternoons or evenings that we could go into the city and just hang out, get food together, or do whatever. So some of the people in this picture are Ben, Carsey, Andrew, James, Will, Hannah, and I. So here's a picture from one of the organizations we visited earlier in the week. This was a summer camp specifically designed for special needs individuals and campers who still wanted to experience going to summer camp, but have their accommodations still met. which was really great. We had just finished assisting with gardening, painting, cleaning up around the camp. And as like a special surprise, they took us to go see the chicken coop in the camp, and we got to hold some of the chickens. It's a lot harder than it looks. We had to like chase them around for 10 minutes before actually getting this picture, but it was really fun. Here's a picture of, this is from like one of the ice cream shops that our group visited multiple times while we were there in Asheville. So this was like only a few minutes away from the church we were staying at. It became like a popular spot for a group to go in when we weren't doing mission work. Whatever we were doing, our group always found ways to connect with each other, whether it's through like getting ice cream together or just like assisting each other at the work sites. Whatever it was, we would just express our care for each other throughout the week. And I thought that was really special. And yeah, I love these ice cream sandwiches. They were the best. I thought about them the whole ride home, and I wish we had stayed longer just for those. This was on our ride home, taken in one of the vans. So this was the girls' van plus Chauncey. So this was after we made a stop for gas, and everyone in the van bought these like cute little kids water bottles. So this may seem very silly, but I think that this picture does a really good job of just capturing the genuine, fun, and easygoing spirit of our youth group. It doesn't matter what we were doing, like we'd always have a laugh over just hanging out and being near each other. And so, yeah, also down here I wrote, we survived 2 7-hour drives crammed in vans together. So that has to say something. Just to show we liked each other just a little bit. But yeah, that's all I have. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you, Lauren, for sharing. And so the thing we normally do in youth group when somebody shares is we give them snaps. So we can give her snaps, or you can react on your, on your screen if you want to. Thank you, Lauren. So now not everyone was able to make a slideshow. So if I call on you next to introduce yourself and all you do is introduce yourself, that's okay. But if you do have a slideshow, you can share it. And Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself and just share your grade and yeah, the school that you go to?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Andrew Gray. I'm a sophomore at Walt Whitman High School. So I don't have a slideshow. I wish I took more pictures, but it's good to be here.
It's good to be here with you too. And snaps for Andrew. And yeah, I see that in the chat. Polaroids are huge. Polaroids are huge right now. And Julia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Julia Anderson. I'm a freshman at Einstein High School. I also did not make a slideshow, but the memories, the photos are with me and in my head. So
yes, absolutely. That's for Julia. Glad you're here, Julia. And last but not least, Will, could you introduce yourself for us?
My name is Will Coffinger, and I'm a sophomore at Walt Whitman High School.
Awesome. Snaps for Will. And so I have a ton of pictures, so don't worry. I have lots of pictures that I'm going to start sharing now. And youth, this is the part where I will ask you at times to interrupt me, but you don't have to wait for me to ask that. If you want to interrupt me, you can just do it. So here we are. So, what's happening? Okay. So here's our picture before we left. This is all the people. So right now we have 4 of the youth who were able to go on the trip, and some of our chaperones are here too. I'll just go through, and this is everybody that was on the trip. Here's Pastor Denise. This is Allie. She graduated. She's in England now, so she's not on the call. And she's living there for college this year. And here's Will and Ben and James and Charlie and Andrew, who's here with us this morning, and Lauren, who's here this morning. We have Chauncey, who was one of our youth advisors on the trip. And some of you might remember him as a youth because he did grow up at Bradley Hills and he went on these mission trips when he was growing up here. And now he is sometimes a chaperone. And we have Carsey and Hannah and Carrie, and here's Julia, there's me, and then Carol Frankel and Judy Azoni. That was our full team for this Asheville mission trip. When we got there, this was the first night we were there. And do any of the youth remember, and would you like to share about like what's happening in these pictures, especially like what was Will doing here? Maybe Will, you remember that?
Yeah, so we were kind of like simulating like the unfairness of Caesar and the whole kingdom. So in that photo, in I'm the one with the crown. I'm Caesar. And so they would give each person a little money, and then I got to take like half of it, or I got to pretty much take all of it. And so we did that, showing like how is the unjust and how I just got to take everything from the poor farmers.
Yes, it was sort of like about the Roman Empire. We were learning about the Roman kingdom and how Caesar was very good. But there wasn't just Caesar. Here's Will as Caesar, and then Allie was Pontius Pilate. And then, oh, where'd it go? Why did you do that? And then Charlie was Herod. So we had all these people like taking, and everybody else was a commoner. And we had all these people, all these rulers taking all of our money if we were commoners. So we were sort of learning about, like Will said, the injustice of the Roman Empire system, especially if you were a common person. And then we contrasted that with the kingdom of God. Would any of you like to share like kind of the idea of kingdom versus kingdom? You remember about that?
Yeah, part of it is that we like share with everyone. Whereas in the kingdom that we learned about with Caesar, like all the money just trickled down to Caesar, and in the kingdom it's all divided and everyone gets their share.
Yeah, that's really good. Like the equality and the justice is more present in the kingdom, where God is in charge rather than Caesar. So that was a big thing. Go ahead, Lauren.
I just wanted to add on like another big word that we talked about that had to do with like the kingdom rather than the kingdom was equity. So just making sure that like every person has enough to be equal, to like start at the same place. So.
Yeah, thank you. So that was a really kind of enlightening exercise. And then here's some pictures from our very first work day. And so I see, here we are at a garden, and Will, what are we doing here in this picture?
We went to like a little local farm, or a little like local, I think it was like a church or a community center or something. And people like just could come and plant their vegetables and pick vegetables and just maintain the garden for fun. So here we're like picking weeds and just getting some of the like junk out so the good stuff can grow.
Yeah, thanks, Will. And like not pictured is like all of these weeds here and all these weeds here, they were all gone by the time we left. It was completely clear. And the people that worked there were so excited that they had like a whole new section of the garden where they could where they could plant some more, vegetables. So it's a community garden, and anybody in the community was allowed to take, I think on Fridays, anybody in the community could come and take whatever they wanted. And there's Carsey doing some weeding work. Paw Creek Garden. There's some of us. So we were so big that we had to be split into 2 groups. So this is one of the groups. And I'll show some worksite pictures from the other group in a little bit. But so here we are at a food bank. And maybe either Lauren or Julia, could you share like what we were doing at this food bank in these pictures?
Well, basically what we were doing was we were sorting the food so that it could go to a farmer's market or a place where they hand out food to families in need or single person homes in need. And so we had to sort them into, first of all, we had to sort out I remember sorting rotten potatoes from the good potatoes. It was really hard to tell which one was which. But after I did that, we kind of sorted them into boxes for single families, I think it was 3 or less, families of 3 or less, or 4 or more. So we had to sort all of that. So it was corn, potatoes, basically a bunch of fresh produce, stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's what's going on in this picture here with all these boxes lined up. I think these boxes were for the smaller families, and these boxes were for the larger families. And then basically everybody who drives through, because it was still COVID was still even more of a concern. It's still a concern, obviously, but it was even more of a concern back in just 4 months ago. And people were just driving through, and they would get to pick up this huge box of vegetables. And there's a lot of food insecurity in this part of the country. So this is a very needed, establishment. And then here's the other group that Denise was with and Judy was with. Andrew, could you share a little bit about maybe what's happening in this picture or at this work site?
Yeah, so, well, I think these are 2 different work sites. For that one, we took a trip to Walmart, and we bought a whole shopping list of supplies, and they're going to people who are just getting a house, getting an apartment. And so these are supplies so that they can kind of kickstart their new life there. The shopping trip was a lot of fun. So
yeah, and those are folks who I think have recently been unhoused, been living on the streets. So, and what was happening at this work site?
So this one, I think there were 2 different parts to it. The first part, we went down to a farm and we did gardening, and then we came back here and we took a tour of the food distribution place where people can take a shopping cart and it's like they're shopping. They go down the aisles and take different foods, and so that was really cool. We got a whole tour of of the system of food distribution that they do. So
that's wonderful. And then I guess, are these just some of the full-time staff people there?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess what I'd like to share is just this sort of radical, this is one of the places of experiencing radical hospitality that that a lot of the food banks are, where you get what people give you, as opposed to in this particular site, their food bank was more that people could come in and make choices about what were appropriate for them and their family. So, and even their taste. So if they didn't like a particular thing, there were more choices available, like in a particular grouping. So maybe you don't like black beans, but you love red beans. So you could make that choice, as opposed to just being given a box that had something in it that maybe you wouldn't eat or couldn't eat or something like that. So that was what we found was so humanizing about it, that people were treated with respect and allowed to make choices based on their own needs. And what they found was that oftentimes people would decline things that they didn't need that week. So as opposed to taking another gallon of milk, they say, well, I still have milk left over, so I won't get it this week. And they would leave it for somebody else.
Thank you, Denise. That's helpful to know. So like, oh, okay. So here's another work site. Here we are painting, lots of painting. And we even got Carol into painting. And what was like, I don't know, does anybody remember what, oh yeah, what was this work site? Do we remember?
I think it was the campsite for kids with special needs, but I think this specific project, like painting, it was gonna be like a little greenhouse, I think. So they were gonna grow like plants in it. I remember before this we were like weeding a little like garden, but then during this time we were painting the door and kind of making little like, they kind of look like little mud pies, because we had to like, I think they were making it to put like seeds in or something, but we had to go down to the little stream and like collect water in like giant jug things, and they were kind of heavy to try and like pull up the little like hill thing. It was, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, and here we were painting this little shed, and they were turning it into a greenhouse, like Julia just said, at this camp for children with special needs. And I think there were also adults with special needs at this camp as well. And here's the mud pie looking thing that Julia was just talking about, and the water buckets that we had to carry up this. It wasn't a huge hill, but there was kind of a hill over on that other side of the lane. And so we were just getting the greenhouse ready with little places to start some seedlings. And there's Anna filling up a water bucket. Okay, and then Lauren already talked about this a little bit, but there were so many chickens at this was at the same camp. So after we did some weeding and the painting and the mud pie things, getting the greenhouse ready, they let us come and play with the chickens. And so we all chased the chickens, and some of us got to hold them.
How many of you had never chased a chicken before?
I've never done it. You have to be very gentle. You can't be scary. Okay, and here's Ben playing the piano at our shower site. I think one of you should tell everyone about how the showers worked at this, and just the living accommodations that we were dealing with all week.
I can share a little about that. So basically, like, our shower sites were at a separate location from the church that we were staying at. So we kind of had to like dedicate like an hour and a half of our time, like depending on how many other groups were also showering at the site, because we shared this site with like a couple of other churches who were also on the mission trip. But so it would take a little bit of time to, like, after we were done at our work sites, go to the site to take showers, and then, you know, possibly have to wait for those. And then after we were done with showers, like, go back to our church site. So we were kind of running around for a lot of it, but while we were waiting there, sometimes, like in this picture, Ben would be playing on the piano, and like we just all sit down and kind of listen to him in awe, because he's so good. But I think he he was playing Benny and the Jets most of the time. I remember that was the song, and it was just so great to listen to him play while waiting for your showers. It made it a little less annoying. But yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that, Lauren. And then maybe Will or Andrew, would either of you like to say something about the place where we slept, like the room where we slept, and what that was like?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
It was like a church. It wasn't like that big. It was pretty small. And there was like an upstairs area with like three or four empty rooms, kind of. And there's our youth group and then two other youth groups. And so we all took one room. And it wasn't too bad, but it's still not the same as sleeping in your own bed at home. And I forgot my air mattress, so I thought I was gonna be sleeping on the floor. Luckily, they had like these little pad things that I got to sleep on. But yeah, it was pretty crowded, and we all ate in the same like small area, or we all in the mornings, and so we had to take, each youth group took turns like making dinner and making breakfast for all the other youth groups. So, but yeah, our youth group was the biggest, and the rooms were all equal size. So I feel like we got not the fair. It wasn't fair for us. But.
Yeah, it's just striking me that we talked a lot about equity, like Lauren said, like, and equity is when you get what you need. But what we got was equality, which is where everybody gets the same thing, regardless of need. And we definitely had the biggest group, and we had the same size room as everybody else. And we're like, you know, if you had to get up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, you were walking, like stepping over people, because it was like that scene in Home Alone where there's like all the cousins are like sharing like 6 beds. That was kind of like what it was like. But it was fun too. And then this is from another of our work sites called Haywood Street Congregation. And their whole kind of, they had kind of their buzzword was holy chaos. And for them, holy chaos, this was a church, and they would serve meals to people experiencing homelessness, and then they would have a worship service. And it was very different from most worship services I've been to. Here's what they sort of hold dear at Haywood Street when they have their worship services and share their meals. They say, in holy chaos, we cling to relationships over rules. We defy the stereotypes that separate, and we embrace the disorderly work of ministry. And let me just say that, like, it was busy and chaotic. One of the groups served a meal there. It was busy and chaotic. But they did have an order to it, but they were just very comfortable with kind of the chaos of it. And this is from, there was this huge fresco in the sanctuary of Haywood Street. And I don't know if any of the youth, do you remember anything about that fresco, or would you like to say anything about it?
Yeah, I can say so. I thought it was really cool because they incorporated people who were important to the organization, and they put them in the fresco. So it was just a big piece of art. It was super beautiful, and it had a lot of meaning to it, especially to the organization, because it had all these people that were so important to the organization.
Yeah, and this is just one part of that fresco. It spanned like an entire wall of the sanctuary. And these are just some of the people that have played important roles in the community. Did anyone else want to say anything about it? You don't have to, just want to make sure. Okay, cool.
So if I could say, the man who has the sunflowers is actually like the foreman now of taking care of the garden there. And he originally came there, I think, when he was injured. So he had been in the hospital, and at Haywood Street, they have this this respite place where people can come where they don't have any place else to go if they've been in the hospital and need a place to recover once they have come out of the hospital. And so he has stayed. And then even more recently, I think like a tractor, some kind of large equipment fell on his leg, but he still is there as the supervisor of the garden. And so just the all the things that he's given back to that community because of the love that he received from them. And so that's partly why they put him in the fresco.
Yes. And Carol Frankel just put a note in the chat. She said, I have to leave home to get to church, but for me, the experience at Haywood Street was one of the most powerful I've ever had. There was such respect in the treatment of everyone who came to the center. The meal and the church service were amazing. I'm sure the youth will provide more details. And so there we are outside at Haywood Street, just one of the groups. And would anyone like to, if you were at that worship service, or what was different about it, or what did anything strike you about it, or anything that you still remember vividly about it?
I remember for that worship service, it was a lot of the congregation and like the people sitting in the pews, just sharing their personal stories as they related to like the scripture we were going over. But I think, yeah, it was a lot less focused on like the person who was like, who had just started speaking or who was like kind of running the service at the time, and more focused on the people that were there and getting them to be able to share their personal stories and be heard by everyone else who was also in that congregation, which was like completely different from any other service that I've experienced. But I just thought that was really powerful to give so much like authority to the people who were in the congregation, just letting them speak out whenever they felt like they needed to.
Yeah, and you could tell they were so comfortable there. They were right at home there. And even some of the people, there were a few people who slept during the service. And one of the pastors told me that that's just, they know they're safe here and no one's gonna try to hurt them or take their things. And there's not really anywhere else in the city where that's true. So if they need to sleep, we let them sleep. Anything else about that church service or about the meal that we served that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So what we did actually was before the church service, we like served meals, like it was like a normal restaurant. It's just the place on Sundays and Wednesdays, they would like pair up with like restaurants, the like local restaurants, and it would be like a free, like it was a completely free. It was like a family style meal, and you got to order from a menu just like you were at a normal restaurant, and it didn't matter like where you were from. Everyone was welcome, and you got to see like each person at the restaurant. Each person was so inviting. I still remember, like I was like serving tables and stuff, and I would ask people. There was a lot of people there. Like they were always at the door trying to come in, and so I would be like looking around for seats, trying to get more people in and trying to get it like moving. And I would be like, are you sitting here? Is anyone sitting here? And then they would respond, you are. And they just were so friendly. They didn't care. They didn't know who I was. I'd never met them. They'd never met me. They just invited me to sit down with them. And it was just such a friendly situation. I still remember I met a couple people. I'm a Duke fan, and I met some UNC fans, and we were like going back and forth, and I sat down with them. I talked with them for a while, and it's just so easy to talk to people that are so friendly, and all of them are so genuine. And we learned that we initially came to serve them, but in a way they were serving us too, and it was like all equal. And yeah, it was a really, I took a lot from this specific, I took a lot from the whole trip, but this specific part was really meaningful to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people too.
Yeah.
I also wanted to add on and say, so when everyone was kind of like serving people, I had gotten kind of lost because I had been playing Jenga with Ben and Carol and this woman that we met named Angie. And so Robert, I found Robert, who was the man in the mural holding the flowers, and he kind of like took me around the building, and there was this art room where like people could go in there and just like express themselves and just paint. So me and Carol, like, we saw like incredible artists who were just using their time there to just like, you know, get their emotions out, and it was really beautiful. And there were 2 kids there too who were like making finger paintings. So yeah, I thought that was really a great part of the trip. And Anna actually told me, this happened to Anna, but she said she actually met someone who hugged her, and she didn't know why, but then they told her that they were from Ukraine, and I thought that was really beautiful because so.
Yeah, a refugee from Ukraine who had recently arrived, I believe, so in this country, and was trying to, just needed some food. All right, thanks, Andrew.
Sorry to go. Thank you.
And there's the other group. They also went to Haywood Street. There's their picture. And here's, I think this is our last picture. I was not here for this. So I think this was the other group. So I don't know if Denise wants to say anything, or maybe Judy. I'm not sure what's happening in this picture.
I'm sorry. I sent you pictures and that must have accidentally gotten in. That's my granddaughter in Germany. I'm sorry.
All right. All good. So those are pictures from our trip. And so I have a few questions for the youth, and then we'll open it up for any of your questions that you have for the youth. And so anybody can answer this. Was there anything not in the pictures that you remember from the trip? Like maybe from a free day or in the afternoons, or anything that wasn't in there that you think is important from the trip? While you think, I just remembered, and it's okay if you don't have anything, that's okay. Just, but while you think, just remembered, I have a little, very short slideshow from Carsey, who is also one of the youth on the trip. She couldn't be here today, but she wanted to show these slides. So Carsey was also on the trip. This is in the evenings. Sometimes we would play games. The youth played Settlers of Catan. Apparently Carsey won. I don't know if that's actually true. Will is shaking his head no, but okay. We were walking around Asheville some evenings, ice cream trips. And I think Will said, or maybe Andrew said, about how, you know, we took turns making meals for each other. All of the, like, we would make a meal and then another youth group would make a meal and we'd all share. So here's one night where we had to make pasta for dinner for everybody.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, that if I told you guys how we had the largest youth group. So it was very chaotic. Not everyone had a thing to do. And I'm not even sure a meal would have got made without Chauncey. He pretty much did everything. Yeah, it was, without him, we probably would not have got anything done. Because he went to culinary school, and so it was by far the best meal of the week. Everything tasted so good. But yeah, I don't know what we would have done without him.
Yeah, we were lucky that he was in our group. Because if you don't know, Chauncey is kind of a chef. So, okay, so another question for the youth is, what was one of your favorite parts of the trip?
For me, my two favorite parts were the part I shared before at the Haywood Street congregation. And then also on our free day, we went tubing down like a lazy river kind of. And besides getting like extremely sunburnt, it was really fun. Oh, and yeah, I also bought water shoes 3 days before we left, so I could like wear like some like nice shoes in the river. And then I left them at the church, so I had to wear and ruin a pair of sneakers, so that wasn't that fun. But it was good. It took a lot longer than I thought. It was like 3 hours. We were like sitting on these tubes, and everyone got a lot. I feel like there was a lot of time to talk, and we all talked for a long time. We all became closer. Yeah, it was really fun. It was a really fun little adventure we got to do on the off day.
Yes, you all became closer and flipped your youth leader into the water, and it took 3 hours. It was only supposed to take 2, but the wind was against us the whole time. Julia or Lauren, do you have a favorite part that you'd like to share?
Well, mine are kind of like the exact same as Will's. So like, I also thought it was really meaningful to be able to go to Haywood Street. And then, yeah, I loved the tubing, but it did take forever. I mean, like, just to like kind of illustrate it for you, we were like sitting on the river, basically not moving. And you kind of like, the only way you can move is if you're like paddling with your hands, or you just like happen to luck out and got an oar. And then you'd like kind of tie your tubes onto your friends and then like paddle all 3 of you guys down the river. It was a struggle, but yeah, we had definitely a lot of time to get to know each other better, a lot. And then also, like, I wanted to answer your first question about like a part that wasn't really mentioned before, but we went on like a walk around the city, the whole group, and we basically visited like different organizations and places that like a homeless person would go if they were trying to find like food or shelter in the city. And so they took us to like places like Haywood Street and other organizations like Salvation Army. And there was one more, I forget the name of it, where like homeless people could go to like just stay for the night. But I just thought it was really impactful to go around like the whole city and be put in like the same shoes as someone who is like does have food insecurity and doesn't have proper shelter. That was just like really, really impactful to just be in their shoes for a day and kind of see what it was like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that one of my best memories is, so while there was this one day where there were like so many groups at the showers at like one point, but on that same day there was a Zumba class that was in the gym. So like me and Lauren and like Carsey and Allie, I think Will tried to do it, but we were all kind of dancing with them, and while we were just like waiting to go into the showers, and it was just like really fun and like chill, and they were so welcoming, and they had some great songs on, And so I thought that was just really fun and really like relaxed. And then on the first day, there was this at the like small garden, there was this woman who brought us bread, like freshly baked bread. And so she was so sweet, and I thought that bread was really good. And then we got to eat raspberries, like freshly grown, and they were the best raspberries I've ever had. And then also to answer the first question, we did this job. There was like, I thought we were going to a small garden, but it was gigantic. Like I did not expect it to be that big. But we went to this like giant garden, and we had to lay down cardboard so that like these squash plants, like the leaves wouldn't like like cover the other plants or like get entwined with them or something. And so we had to rip off the tape from like each cardboard piece. And that was probably the most work that I did that day, because we also did mulching, which meant going up and down a hill carrying wheelbarrows or shoveling mulch into the wheelbarrows every 2 seconds. There was no indoors. The only like shade was if you went around to this little like shed that held our water bottles. I think I ran out of water too that day. But so that was a lot of hard work, but we got blueberries, so that was, yeah.
Yeah, the youth of this church are not lazy. Like they are hard workers. So now I'll just open it up to any questions from anybody, or any comments or any gifts that you see in these youth that you'd like to share with them.
Was this the first time that you've gone to Asheville? And if not, how would you compare this to other mission trips that you've been on? That's a question for everybody.
I'm not sure. This is my second mission trip that I've been on. The last one was not in Asheville. The last one was in Tennessee. And I mean, both of them were great experiences. The thing I liked about this Asheville trip a little more, is you got to really connect with people a lot more. And well, you got to like really, it was just you got to learn about the whole culture and the area that they lived in. And then when we went to Tennessee last year, I think it was, yeah. And the thing I like more about that trip is we were all working together, and we were all working on the same house, and we got to build a really good relationship with one person, the owner of the house. So they were both like the same concept, but they were both a little different, and they were both different in good ways. And so I think each experience, every mission trip is a little different, but they all are good, and you get to take away different things from them. And yeah, I'm always excited to go on a mission trip.
Yeah, I agree with Will. I think the mission trip last year in Tennessee compared to this year's in Asheville were both very different, but they were both very meaningful. Like Will said, last year we got to work with just one person, and like see him every day, build a very strong relationship with him. And like also our whole group was working together at one site. So like we were constantly hanging out, and it was nice to like be able to see the other people from our group aside from just like when we had our free day, like kind of how it was in Asheville, because we were split up into 2 groups. But what was nice about Asheville was like being able to visit so many different work sites. I think that was really good for our group, because everyone seems to have like different experiences that they connect the most with. So I think it was really good for us to be able to visit so many different sites and work with so many different people, just so that like everyone had a chance to feel connected to something.
Any other questions or comments or compliments for these youth?
Does anybody in the library have a question?
Well, I would, I'm not in the library, but I would just like to say I'm just amazed at what you're able to accomplish as far as the outreach, the cultural understanding that you built, and the camaraderie and the way that you work together. And want to congratulate you and thank you so much for sharing. The sharing was amazing. You guys did a wonderful job.
Yeah, yeah, dittos to what Carol just said. But my question for the youth and for Matt is there anything that the church can do to support the youth and Matt as you all, plan these trips? Are there any resources that you need? I mean, how can we be more supportive? Just because this is just so important to see the youth and their experiences and how much they grow and how much we learn from hearing the feedback from your trips. So just want to make sure we're giving you everything you need. And if there's anything we can be doing better, let us know.
Yeah, so one thing you can do, that's a great question. One thing you can do is you can come to the chili cook-off on December 4th. It'll be in the evening. You can make some chili for it to enter. We'll have like a little competition, and it will. This is like you have to pay I think it's like $10 to get in, and it's like a fundraiser for our mission trip and for we do some other summer trips too. So you can participate in that. And then at the annual meeting in February, we'll be selling soup and you can buy some soup from us. So whenever we're doing fundraisers, if you're able to contribute, that is one need because it enables us because some of these trips are a little bit expensive. Some families don't have as many resources as other families in our church, and it just helps us to be able to provide some scholarships that are needed. And that's one thing. And another area of support is you could consider if God might be calling you to be a chaperone on one of these trips at some point. Judy's still on the call. She was a chaperone for this mission trip. And she was a chaperone the year before when we went to Tennessee, like we were saying. And I know it can be a very rewarding and fun thing. So you do, I guess what I want to say about being a chaperone is that you do not have to have a ton of experience. You do not have to have all the answers to questions about theology or questions about how to do mission. You just have to have an open heart, ready to love these youth and ready to do whatever's asked of us when we go on these trips. So those are two ways: the financial component, coming to the fundraisers, and then another way is by considering if maybe you might be called to be a chaperone. And I don't know if the youth have anything else. I just wanted to name those two.
How does the decision get made as to where to go on the mission trip?
The youth committee, which is made up mostly of parents, will find maybe 2 or 3 trips and then consult with some of the youth and figure out which looks the most interesting, the most affordable, what dates are the best, and that kind of thing. But the youth committee kind of has final say.
Where are you going next summer?
Want to share, somebody? Who knows?
We're going to Charlottesville, South Carolina. And basically, on that trip, we'll be working a lot with some with marine life. Also, we'll be working with the foster care system. I forget like some of the other aspects, but like there's basically like a lot of different little activities that we'll get to work on throughout that trip, which I think everyone was kind of excited about. Like, also we'll get to have like a beach day, which I know was very convincing.
Charleston, South Carolina, right?
Charleston.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Matt knows the most about this, but I'm pretty sure there's like a more environmental aspect of it, and we'll be doing more work with the environment, which at least I have never done on one of the youth trips. Most of them have been more like home repair and like what we were just talking about with Asheville. So we've never really done something that is like working with the environment. So I think that'll be a really cool experience and a really cool thing to try with the youth group and just see how it goes.
Charleston is a really, really interesting city. I think you guys are going to enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, it is.
So thank you, everybody. I do have to step off because I have to get make sure Sunday school is ready. But thank you so much, and please continue if you need to. But I'm going to have to jump off. Thank you so much to all the youth for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
It was a great program. Thank you.
I think we're going to take enough energy to last us a week from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us share.
Yep. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye,
guys.
You guys were great. I just got back.
Yeah.
All right. Next week.
I have no on
December what?
Sunday. No, it's
December.
December.
That word? I think.
All right, folks in the library. Next week, we're going to have a really interesting speaker. Thanks to Dr. Walvin.
Which I think
we have Dr. Evelyn Ofong, who is a newly minted Doctor of Divinity, who is a member of is it the International Listening Association, Andy?
Yes.
Who did her project for her divinity degree on empathetic listening, cultivating unity in a politically divided church.
Wow.
She did a study with, I think it was 7 pastors whose congregations were politically divided, and working with the pastors to overcome their internal empathy blockers, which is something that we all can think about doing, and so that we can become better listeners. And that's a really important skill these days. It's one that is sadly lacking in many parts of American society right now.
She did her study as
Hello.
For her Doctor of Ministry at Baylor Seminary, and she's a very, very dynamic person. So I encourage you to join us.
Thank you, Andy. I assume you will be introducing her next week.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Great.
I might be interested in volunteering for that.
There you go.